Go from the A-League, we turn our attention now to the New South Wales NPL, and we're lucky enough to have one of the most experienced coaches of our time in the NPL and in the football community, in Manny Spanoudakis. Good evening, Manny. Manny, can you hear us?
Hey, good evening.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you. I think you're frozen there, or
I'm sorry about that. I'm just in an office at training. I just stepped away from training tonight. Jumped in an office and I'm working off the hotspot on my mobile phone. So I apologise for that. I'm on a Mac.
All good. Manny, firstly, thank you for coming on Football Fever today. We really wanted to speak to you. Firstly, I wanted to start a little bit before we go into now that you're back in the coaching ranks. For a lot of people that don't know, you were a technical analyst, as you want to put it, working with Marconi for a while. You won the championship last year, which was great scenes and a great performance. What made you want to go back into coaching full-time again? I mean, you've had success, well, you've been successful wherever you've coached, you've won trophies wherever you've gone. Was that a burning ambition after the grand final win and an opportunity to get back into the coaching world with St. George FA?
Look, during COVID, just before COVID hit in 2020, I had booked 7-week European trip for my 30th wedding anniversary. So I had stepped away. We started St. George City as a new project in effectively what is, let's call it NPL 4 in 2016, and fortunate enough to be successful and win and get promoted. And then in 2020, I was going to step away and go with Helen to Europe for our 30th anniversary. And then obviously COVID hit and there was those shortened seasons and everyone was stuck. So I didn't coach in 20 and most of 21. I always had the intention to get back to coaching. And then a coincidental catch up with Peter Tsekenis and Peter Papithas on a Friday night at an over 45s game that I decided to go watch because I was bored. And they asked me the same question, what are you thinking of doing? And I said, look, I haven't really thought about it. I do want to get back into it. But I wouldn't mind experiencing football through the lens of a staff coach. I've always been the head coach. And if I'm going to develop into an even better leader and coach, I'd love to view the world through a staff coach. And thankfully, Tecker went straight to the CEO. And so I started that role in the middle of 2022 as his assistant, the second assistant, I guess, and the analyst. And I thought, look, this will give me some great insights into what it's like to be a staff coach so that when I go back to being the head coach again, I have an even understanding of the role of staff. And so my experience and my time at Marconi was fantastic. Firstly, working with two people that I got a great relationship with and I trust as friends and as football people. The club itself, outstanding, professional club in every aspect. And so I had the opportunity to slowly provide some input and influence to help Pete and the club. And it was always intended that at the end of 2024, I would step down, that this project of being a staff member had served its purpose, and that I'd wait patiently this year until someone unfortunately gets moved on and an opportunity presents itself. I was really looking forward to dropping my golf handicap during the summer and going on a holiday and doing all that stuff. And then I was pretty blessed, to be honest with you. I had a couple of clubs call me Monday after the grand final. And one of them was this club, St. George City FA, which I have a long history with. And I at that point, it had been probably 6 months since my father had passed, and it's something that I discussed with my dad about going back to St. George City FA as the head coach at some point and working with my son, James, who was the assistant coach to Mickey Euro last year. And we had won championships and promotion together as a coach and as a player, but never worked together as a coach and an assistant coach. And so I accepted the offer from ATEC on a pretty massive project, rebuilding project, truth be told, but I'm loving every minute of it.
How are you finding stepping it back into the head coach position now? How are you finding the NPL? Has it changed over the time since, like, now that you're finding it? I think it's the NPL and the coaching standards really gone up leaps and bounds, and I really believe it's improved heavily in the last couple of years. How are you finding it? Would you agree with that statement there?
Yeah, I agree with that. And because I was still involved at PL at Marconi in both coaching as an assistant, but also doing detailed analysis of our opponents and preparing those presentations and game plans and tactics for the coach. I always was boss the teams. And obviously we played against you a couple of times last year. And so that gave me great insight into a lot of things. But you're absolutely correct. The standard is actually quite high. I speak to like people like Mark McNulty and Salo and these guys who came here with no real impression or understanding of NPL and are pleasantly surprised at the standard of the league, the standard of the footballers. There's no doubt that coaches are far more prepared now than they were even a decade ago and taking advantage of the available resources, be it from a physical preparation perspective for, let's call it GPS and what have you, to video analysis and everything that comes with being able to get a bit of an insight into your opponent. So yeah, the standard is good. The coaches are a little bit braver. They're trying things now, which is great on the back of being armed with this information and being armed with good staff members. And it's actually a pretty good league. I quite enjoy coaching. I love the pressure. I love being a leader. I'm very similar to my corporate world where I kind of thrived on high pressure positions and performing in high performance environments. So I love every moment of what I do. And the reality is it's all about perspective. I'm one of 16 privileged guys that are getting to do a job that probably thousands of others across the football landscape in New South Wales anyway would love to do.
Yeah. You said we said like last year St George FA did make up the semi-final series. We're a little bit unlucky in that semi-final series, I thought as well. But there has been a lot of changes since the end of last season, since you've taken over. You had a good win on the week and a hard-fought win against the Wanderers, 1-0. How's the progression been? I mean, it's building slowly.
Yeah, it has been slowly because progress is not linear, unfortunately, and so it's stuttered and disrupted and injuries and all sorts of stuff. So ATEC made it very clear that there was a rebuilding phase, and that unfortunately numerous of our key players last year that served the club so well got them into fifth spot. A little bit unlucky, they lost the semi-final in extra time. That we need to rebuild, and so that's what we set about doing, understanding that we have an eye on the future, but an eye on this year as well. And so, look, it's been, I won't say as I expected. I did expect disruptions and injuries, and I did expect setbacks. We've had our fair share of them, but we're not alone. I speak to other coaches and plenty of people, and at your club as well, you've had a couple of ACLs, and so that's all part of what you do. And I mean, you've got to learn to expect it. And if you can't work within those parameters, then possibly you shouldn't be working as a coach, because it's all part and parcel. So no sob stories, no sympathy or anything. We roll our sleeves up, we work hard, and hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel is actually that light, not a train, because we're slowly starting to get people coming back from injuries at a time where it's critical for us, because we are going into a really difficult run of games. They're all difficult, but an even more difficult run of games.
Andy?
Yeah, Manny, mate, we obviously cover the NPL quite a bit, and it's a personal favourite of mine, getting out and watching some games. I'm not too far from Marconi Stadium. But I want to mention to you, even going back on what we discussed, obviously on a lesser level with Steve Corica, we had on before you, about that support from the club and back end. You mentioned ATEC Gange. I've actually got a good mate of mine who coaches the youth boys there, the under 14s, Elias Tritsaris, and they're having a lot of success. And he actually always mentions how ATEC is as an operator and as a TD and what he does for St George City. So how important is that to the success of the club in whole, because they're doing really, really well in the youth space, as you probably are aware, which obviously is big for you guys in the senior level.
Yeah, and look, my relationship with ATEC goes back over 20 years. ATEC worked with me as my assistant at the other St George Saints in 2003 to 2005, when same thing, rebuilt a team, came top of the league. We created the Johnny Warren Cup, which is something I'm very proud of. And so formed a relationship there. Then we went our separate ways. He went to Blacktown, I went to Olympic. And then he called me in 2016 or 15, 10 years ago, and said, I'm starting a new club. Please don't accept any NPL 1 offers. Come and hear me out. And so that was the beginning of our conversation and our journey at St George City. And thankfully, I won promotions from 4 to 3 to 2 and so forth. ATEC is probably at the highest level there can be when it comes to a head of football, because of his holistic understanding of the game, the business of football, the tactics of football, the importance of a youth development pathway. And so we have a great relationship. We have a lot of great respect for each other. We talk about stuff daily, openly and transparently. I value his input. He values my input. That's why I guess he trusted me to come back into the club and asked me to come back. And so, look, I think I'm very blessed that I have a head of football who is probably, from a profiling perspective, the best candidate you can have at an NPL level, and would comfortably do this job as a football director or a sports director or head of football at an A-League club comfortably. This is a passion project for him. This is his club. This is something that he started 10 years ago with an idea and a cup of coffee we had at the Novotel at Brighton, and I bought in on it then, and I'm just as engaged and committed to it and consumed by it as I was 10 years ago.
And that importance of the youth success and how good they're travelling in the NPL?
Very important, particularly with the rule changes coming in next year about pathway players and under 21 players. And it was, that conversation we had at the Novotel at Brighton in September of 2015, his objective was, I need you to get promoted to NPL 2 because I want the glory, but I need to get an NPL youth license so we can build a pyramid and a pathway like we did at the other St. George in 2003, 4 and 5, right, which was very successful as well. We got them promoted from NPL 2 to 1 youth, and the senior team was top of the league, and we were able to attract the likes of the Chichi Mendes and the Ivan Zeliches and the Brendan Renos and good players who came to the club at under the market rate because they believed in the program we were playing and the type of football we were playing. This was a kind of a replica of that, albeit starting right at the entry level of New South Wales football.
Yeah, fantastic.
No, Manny, it's been excellent, and I think St. George City CFA has been excellent, and Aitak Gensh is doing extraordinary things down there. And it's only better for the game and for the association, the St. George Association, and for Football New South Wales. It's been excellent, and you getting people like yourself back into the coaching ranks as a head coach is vital for all young players and footballers. Like I said, you've got a great CV, and hopefully we'll see you around a long time in St. George FA, just doing better things in the future. But once again, thank you for joining us tonight. We don't want to take much more of your time. I know training's very important, so we'll let you.
You're doing me a favour because it's bucketing down here, Chubba. So you're doing me a favour. But no, thank you firstly for the opportunity, and I appreciate the time you've given me to give you a bit of an insight into what I'm doing at St. George City.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Manny, and good luck for the
Cheers, guys. Have a good evening. Thank you, guys. All the best.